Hello and welcome to Blythe Business News. Today I'm joined by Sean Wade. Sean is Chief Executive Officer of Power Metal Resources, listed on AIM, a symbol of POW, and a market capitalisation of around £17 million sterling. It's Sean's first appearance on this show. Sean, welcome. Power Metal Resources has recently announced a number of key developments to its uranium portfolio. Can you give us an overview of what these developments are?
Certainly, Tim, and thanks very much indeed for having me. The uranium portfolio is a very important part of the Power Metal model. We've got 17 properties that are in and around the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan in Canada. Now, of that number, 6 of those sit within the basin itself, which is an area, very well-known area for uranium. It's one of the world's greatest uranium mining address. You've got major companies in there at the moment, Cameco, Denison, Orano, for example. And these licenses are highly prospective for uranium. So we're very excited to be able to talk about this because it's going to be a big value driver for our shareholders.
Now, we mentioned the I can't even say it, the Athabasca Basin, is that right?
That's correct,
The
yeah.
Athabasca Basin. That's where you are. Can you explain for people like me, like the viewers, why is that location so important?
Well, as I say, it's probably the world's #1 address for uranium mining. It's also a very safe jurisdiction. I think people will understand that uranium exists all around the world, and in some locations, they can be slightly more challenging, both logistically, but also in respect to permitting and licensing, etc. I mean, one thinks of some of the Francophone African countries, for example, where there can be some of those logistical and permitting challenges. Canada, you can do business there. It's a very well-established geography. There are lots of majors, as I said, that are involved there. So we're very comfortable that we can get in and develop these properties, to deliver that value we're talking about.
Skilled workforce,
Absolutely.
pro-mining regime. So so you've started on this this exploration program. What are you hoping to learn? What are you expecting to learn from the program?
It's important for people to understand this is a very early stage. Okay, so we've staked out the licenses. We've got a great team of geologists internally who are very, very good at this and have been able to acquire these licenses, on the whole, pretty cheaply, actually. Now, what they're going to do is some ground-based surveys, which will be things like soil sampling, some geophysics, which could involve, for example, airborne magnetic surveys. That's going to prove up the drill target. So this is the first stage where we're going to look at the license areas and then do this early work, and then that will establish where we can then drill. That will be the second stage, will be an exploration program which will ultimately, we hope, will yield major discoveries.
Okay, you must come back and tell us about the progress on that. But in addition to the drill program, you've also announced the acquisition of the Perch River uranium project. What does that add to your portfolio?
So Perch River is also within the Athabasca Basin itself. So it's 10 kilometres from the northern edge of the basin, highly prospective. It's bordered all 4 corners by a major uranium company, and it takes our overall footprint in and around Athabasca to now over 1,000 square kilometres. So this is 39.41 square kilometres of ground in itself. As I said, highly prospective. But I think having 1,000 square kilometres is a major statement of intent. This is a very large footprint, and by far the largest uranium licence area currently in the London market.
Power Metals is, let's call it an incubator company. So in addition to all this drilling you're doing for the uranium assets, you've also announced you're going to be looking at listing the uranium energy exploration bit of your business. You'll list it in London. Tell us a bit more about that, please.
Yes, so uranium energy exploration, or UEE as we call it for short, slightly less wordy, is going to be a London-listed vehicle that's going to initially contain 2 of our licenses. So when we talk about the 17 licenses in all, 2 of those, one's called Rietenbach, the other is called E12, they're being conditionally vended into UEE. And that's going to list in the London markets. Now, what this does is 2 things. First of all, it gives UK investors the opportunity for a pure play exploration company focusing on this area of Canada. So, as you rightly say, Power Metal is an incubator company, which means we're obviously a hybrid of assets and commodities and geographies. And if you buy Power Metal, you're buying a portfolio. You may prefer to have a pure play exposure to any one of these commodities, and we're giving you the opportunity through UEE to do exactly that in uranium. And we think there's great demand, investor demand in London specifically for uranium. We think the outlook for uranium is fantastic. It's starting to nudge now into the upper 50s. And we're not the only ones, I think, who think that there's a major bull market coming. And we all know the macro dynamic of why uranium is in demand. The nuclear fuel debate. But there's a huge supply and demand problem in uranium, as there is across the commodity set, but specifically uranium. So we're giving investors a chance to invest in that. The second thing it does for us, however, is if we've got this, one of the difficulties investors have with a company like Power is how do I value it? You've got all these various assets, some of which are listed, which obviously makes it quite simple, many of which are not, and some of which are minority stakes and so on. So how do I really get a grip on what the asset value per share is of Power? Now, I can look at historic figures for the balance sheet, and we talk about that a lot in our materials. But the more that we can get listed vehicles that allow people to read across to the rest of the portfolio, the more that helps investors to understand the value proposition of Power. Look, my job is to try and unlock the inherent value that exists in our portfolio. Okay, we've got a fantastic asset set, which was built up by Paul Johnson, my predecessor. And we've got a track record already established by Paul of monetizing, crystallizing that value. And my job is to continue that. So find opportunities where we can monetize our assets and deliver that value to shareholders, either directly through IPOs or direct sales, or through things like the UEE listing, where people can see the value inherent in the portfolio being addressed in these spin-outs. So that's why we're doing it. It's a very live situation for us. We're in the process of talking to investors and capital providers on it. So we're looking forward to giving more news on that soon.
Sean, thank you. Please come back and keep us informed. That was Sean Wade, Chief Executive of Power Metals, giving us a very good update on the drill program in Canada on their uranium assets, and also the listing in London of uranium energy exploration, crystallizing value hopefully for Power Metals shareholders. That's it for this edition of Blythe Ray Business News. Thanks for watching.